this was one of the last things that we got to do. You make great plans for completion. And you can't avoid it.
Where'd you get merch?
No, this is Lawrence.
When you're planning, what the future's gonna be, no matter how hard it is.
Whenever you're ready.
All right, is everyone ready? Call the meeting to order. We do have one addition to the agenda, which is just an introduction from Dave Warren, which will follow a presentation by Tim Hortons. And we'll turn it over to Blake.
Okay. Actually, I'll let Kevin's on the Zoom call there. I will let Kevin take it over. He is our architect for this project.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Kevin Grozen with MS Consultants, lead architect and engineer for this project. Give a quick introduction. I will share my screen here. If I were to share, was everybody able to see it?
Yes.
Are you able to share it? Great.
It looks like it.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know when that comes up.
Yep.
Actually, hold on one sec. Make sure I'm putting up the right thing here. There we go. Okay. Okay, so the site in question is on the northwest corner of Main Street and Harrison Street, just south of the bridge. And this is the site of the current Jimmy's Family Restaurant. We would be proposing to put a 2,700 square foot drive-through with interior seating, Tim Hortons. And the goal of this site development would be to minimize disturbance, also, present the building in a position that is well aligned with the intersection, and also create some additional green space in the center of the site and towards the back of the site as well. So just to give a couple background pieces of information, if you can see on the screen here, this is the general vicinity of the existing building. This isn't the exact outline, but we would be demoing this building first as part of this project and allowing for the majority of the back of this site here to be more open space. And we would leave the Riverwalk infrastructure the way it is, the sidewalk and the benches, the tables. That would all remain. We would just look to, once we demo the building, make that a green space right next to the Riverwalk. Back here on the site too, we also have these trees. We plan on screening the site and the trash enclosure, the bypass lane, the drive-through lanes from the Riverwalk, so anybody walking along the river would have this screen thing so that they're not looking directly into a queuing of cars. The other site restriction, we'll call it, is the presence of underground electric, underground water, and underground sewer in the front part of the site. So just to highlight those items, the water runs right through here. The electric one runs, not in that path, but you get the idea, right through there, and then the sewer right in the front of the site along Harrison Street. There is also an easement associated with that. It's a public easement that encompasses most of the front of the site, up to about there where I highlighted. And I'm just going to highlight this whole area here because that is really what the public easement is the whole front of the site, kind of limiting where we can put the building here. So we've positioned the building in a way where it's aligned with Main Street, at least this facade on the east, the northeast side of the building, and then also keeping it out of that easement. And there may be some foundational modifications if we're trying to, once we get into final design here, ensure that we're not impacting the existing duct line or a duct bank for the electrical. but definitely don't want to impact the water and the sanitary in the front of the site. And then, as you're all familiar with the site, this perimeter parking that I will just highlight quickly here. This is all existing parking spaces. We would be looking to really minimize what we're disturbing here. If we can save any of the pavement on site, that would be a goal of ours. But you can kind of see in here, it's faded out, but hopefully it shows up well on the screen. You know, the existing landscape islands that are in the center of the site, those would be ripped out. They would be replaced with new curbing, some new parking in front of the new Tim Hortons. This would be a patio space here in front of the building. And then, you know, we'd add a new landscape island to kind of help with the circulation and also provide a means for pedestrians coming from Harrison Street or from South Main Street. And, you know, a little refuge through the parking lot, get through there, have a little refuge island, and then cross again to get to the patio area. The parking spaces on the northeast side of the building, there would be the ADA spaces, and then we haven't determined this officially yet, but the mobile pickup is usually located somewhere over here if we were to have a door on this side for quick, easy pickup and departure. The drive-through queuing, as the site concept plan stands now, we've got enough space for 16 vehicles before any queuing backs up into the parking lot, which according to the Tim Hortons design standards is the standard for a suburban location. We also provide the double drive-through, ensuring we have additional queuing. This is very similar to Blake's site up on Washington Street with the double drive-through. And we provide the bypass lane for anybody that were to come in and, you know, maybe the drive-through is backed up. They can, you know, pull around the bypass lane and find parking, or pull over here and get into the queue this way. This dash line, again, these are conceptual plans, but this dash line would be a proposed painted striping to, I guess, direct traffic in a way. We've seen that in other drive-throughs where, you know, it's just a guide, essentially. We're not putting barriers or anything like that, but to kind of guide the queue of that drive-through. This bypass lane would also function as, you know, a loading exit lane or a garbage truck exit lane for, you know, it is little impact to, or no impact to the drive-through queue as possible. There is some existing impervious out here as well, if I can just highlight this area. So as you know, the site is currently designed in this conceptual plan. All of that green area is impervious. This is a large sea of pavement on the site. So we would be adding green space on this west side, in addition to the green space that I previously identified up on the north. We would leave the green space on the corner as it currently is, and of course add the center island and this green space on the east side of the building. I think that generally covers it. Hopefully I've captured everything. I don't believe there was anything else that operationally you wanted to touch on, but this time I'll kind of hand it over back to the Plan Commission and Blake.
Yeah, I mean, operationally, I know there could be questions of why we're doing this. Frankly, it's we've had a good relationship with the landlord who we're currently at, but this would give us property control of a store that frankly is the third busiest store in the country. And we had a struggle with our landlord past time with getting a lease. So we saw that this was an opportunity to put it into our own control and make sure that basically we secured, frankly, our busiest and one of Tim Hortons' busiest sites in Jamestown for good. You know, it's frankly, the cost of the land is outrageous for the city. And I don't really know how much other stuff would really be feasible to go there, but with our business, it still makes it work. we looked at it, it's still, you know, it works out for us, hopefully it works for the city. You know, we left that back space open, hopefully giving you guys access to the Riverwalk, which I know right now is kind of a problem. And it kind of gives, you know, a little more green space back there versus, you know, a bunch of concrete and, you know, a big building. Other than that, I mean, operationally in the store, we've gone through and completely customized the interior of the store to really focus on strictly on drive-through time. And we've also built the store to be very heavily for mobile orders and delivery, which this is a very unique situation because we have a store across the street where we can take those stats of what our sales are, what our usage is, and then build this store to make it fit that perfectly. It's not a new store where we're like, oh, let's see what we're gonna do, drive-through percentage, let's see what we're gonna do. We know what we're doing, and we could build the store to make sure that we can get maximum output out of this store. For us, I mean, we're obviously hoping for an increase in sales with this. The double drive-through will help. Obviously, being able to put more cars through. This store is one of our most heavily staffed stores, so the double drive-through doesn't really give us a problem when it comes to staffing wise. Everything else, I mean, you know, we like the location, and frankly, we wanted to make sure that we really nailed in our spot down here. And you know, we've had a good relationship across the street, but this opportunity just worked out best for us.
So that store will close, the one,
That store would close across the street. Realistically, I mean, if all this, if we can get through all this, listen, there's options for that store. There's options for that site for maybe something else. That's, you know, not out of the realm, but I got to work on getting this one done, and then there's always a possibility of possibly moving something over there. So.
and you would demolish the existing building, the old,
Jimmy's.
I want to call it Friendlies, but I'm digging
Yeah.
myself, but, okay.
Yep, so that would be demolished, and like Kevin said, you know, the exterior around those parking lots, we would try to, you know, keep as much of that as we can. You know, limiting the amount of site work is always good. I mean, site work is what's the most expensive part of all of our construction processes right now. So that would help reduce a little bit of the cost, and frankly, it gives it a huge lot. There would be no problems of, you know, is it too tight? Is it not too tight? I mean, there's space. So.
I mean, my other concern was the traffic flow going in from Main Street, because I've been in the line on Foot Avenue, when it goes through the parking lot out onto
Yep.
the street on Nicole Avenue, and it's
Yeah.
a little scary.
Yeah.
But
This-
you
this-
think that's enough with the double drive-through, that'll be enough, so you won't have cars out onto Main Street?
Yeah, and you're also gonna have a lot more parking. So
Yeah.
on like Foot Avenue, where our only parking is where the drive-through runs, you're also gonna have parking in the front. You're gonna have parking where the drive-through will never impact, and you'll have an exit that the drive-through will never impact. So, you know, some of our spots, I understand, you know, it gets a little tight sometimes.
Yeah.
This location, I mean, Kevin, I can't imagine, I don't know if there's any Tim Hortons that's ever been built on a 1.4 acre land. You know, this is definitely the largest piece of property.
Will there be more dining
None that we've worked on.
area too?
So the dining area will be the same. It's gonna be about 36 or 37 people.
Okay.
We basically took the same exact amount of seats that were in the last one and put them over to this one. You know, no soft seating, more just regular chairs and stuff like that. There'll be a patio on the outside, just like we have now.
What about snow removal? Have you thought about that?
Snow removal? I mean, we would just have, the company that does it for us, we'd
Where would
probably-
you put it, I guess?
probably
I've seen
up-
big piles of snow down there.
I would say probably up in that front left of the corner there. Maybe we might end up losing a parking spot or two there when we push it through. But all of our spots right now, we kind of just will end up losing a spot or two. Then if it really gets bad, we have them come in and remove it. But it'd probably be right down there in the
Yeah,
left.
we haven't thought specifically. We haven't thought specifically about snow removal just yet, but since the question's asked, I mean, there is this space here that is not dedicated parking, and there actually is a catch basin in that area, but it also doesn't hinder any traffic from driving past here.
We'd probably also, you gotta figure the last couple of years, there's been nobody maintaining it really.
Right.
So they just kind of push it wherever they want, and you know, like our other lots, if we get too much snow, we have Tabone does all of our plowing. They just come in, they just remove it. There's never a problem. Last year we never had a problem. Hopefully this year we won't either.
There had to be snow.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
it was more ice problem than it was snow problem. So, but
okay.
Is there a reason for the proximity to the easement? Why the location is so close to that, or does it?
I'll let Kevin answer that one.
We were just trying to get as close as we could to the easement, while also keeping it closer, getting it closer to the streets, providing a central location for the building, rather than sticking it in the back, and of course having room for that green space in the back and drive-through queuing. Like I said, if we need to push it back a little bit so that we're ensuring there's no impact to that electric duct bank, we can do that. But yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we keep the building out of the easement.
From the city's perspective, is there a minimum distance to the easement for a structure?
There's probably something in the code for that, I don't know what
But
it
it's
is
not, but
offhand.
so as long as they're within those parameters.
Sure, I
outside
mean,
of that space.
yeah, and whatever the code says, if we needed to make accommodations for a design that brings the store even closer to the curb, should that
always
be
an option.
feasible, that we, yeah. With the update of the comprehensive plan coming, there's gonna be, a fair amount of emphasis on restoration of density where we can, and Brooklyn Square will certainly be a focus of that. So to that end, where we can kind of facilitate that kind of thing.
I mean, my other concern is the Riverwalk. I want to make sure that we maintain that.
Right.
And it sounds like.
Well, I mean, I would assume this would be. I mean, right now it's. I mean, at least this is going to be maintained. This is going to be landscape. This is going to be
Better than what's there right now.
which we're going to maintain. And I would assume. I mean, we got 6 locations around. I think that it's obviously our stuff is pretty well maintained.
Well, and hopefully it might inspire your neighbors to also
I just worry about where I'm at.
ride your coattails to whatever extent they can.
I just do what I do.
1.4
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, but you can see from the drawing that where the current building is, it's been pushed way back, it's been built. So the current building is so much closer to the Riverwalk.
Yeah.
I think this is really good.
Yeah.
It's been floated out there that, we could donate it back and call it Tim Hortons Park. Which we're, on the record, I'm not doing that yet. But,
So how many people would be employed? Would you
This store?
gain? Yeah, because would you keep it the same as, because you're just, you're moving across the street, but.
I mean, the only thing that would really change is obviously adding the double drive-through probably adds another person per shift. And then the ultimate goal would be that if we can create the store, our goal would be to have it's just higher sales. We think that with the flow of things, with how we can handle drive-through speeds and mobile orders, hopefully we can hire more people. I mean, right now we average about 35 people at that store employed. We're somewhere around 200 right now total. So obviously it would not be a decrease. If anything, it'd be an increase. There's no, we haven't moved any technology stuff yet. We don't have kiosks. We don't have any of that stuff. It's all, it's all employee based.
Like, do you see any zoning challenges here? Is there anything that's out of the code?
That's probably, Kevin, was there any zoning issues? I mean, did we find any zoning issues or?
The only zoning issues that were mentioned in the pre-app meeting we had were, of course, the screening in the back here. So this isn't a fully designed landscape plan, but we did want to show that we plan on screening this back area. And then actually the existing parking in the curb would be within the parking setback. So we would request a variance to keep the site as it is there. And then the existing sign, we would have to look into the permitting for the sign typically is handled by the sign vendor, but just make sure that that existing sign could be used. It's a nice size sign, and being so close to the intersection is also very good for business. So those were two things that we wanted to check in, and we made sure to add this pedestrian access to. That was a comment during that pre-app meeting as well.
Thank you.
That's it. Any other questions?
I was thinking about especially the Riverwalk. The Riverwalk has been since we did the urban renewal project 50 years ago. One of a real concern as to how to turn what was basically buried under the road and not seen behind the backs of the factories and everything else, to have it become something that beautified, in a sense, for lack of another word at the moment, of the city and the Brooklyn Square area. I'll have to admit that way back then, with the drawings and the planning for what Brooklyn Square was going to be and how it would be changed, it didn't turn out the way we were pursuing in the beginning, because we did want to get regular business, if you will, down there, and we were less concerned all those years ago about eateries, if you will. And of course, times have changed. As it goes down to the planning, basically you can plan like all get out as to what you're going to do in the future, but things change and you don't quite do it. But the overall though, it sounds nice, and if it really adds to that part of the Riverwalk, that's great, rather than what kind of covers it or hides it or something like that. And I say that with the Riverwalk because I walk my dog down there a lot. It's one of the places she really enjoys, especially if people are down there fishing. So that could be the source for some of the food in the restaurant.
I don't know.
I don't know about that. You can take that up with Hortons corporately.
Yeah. Well, I know that everybody that catches things down there that I've talked with, they take them home and eat them, so.
Yeah.
And they're back again, so it's probably pretty good. The water is a lot better down there with the flow, the changes of the dam, getting rid of a lot of factories that were dumping stuff into the river. I remember one when I was just out of high school, and I was working in a factory down on the street up above there. I can't remember all of a sudden the name, it slips my mind. But it was Monarch Fuse, and I asked the guy one day, because there was a dip tank, if you will, in the building. And I asked them, I said, they'd been working on it and washing things up and spilling and all this stuff. And I said, well, where does this stuff go? And they said, well, down through this drain. I said, well, where does it go from there? The guy took me to the back window, and he said, look down there. So I did. There was a pipe sticking out of the wall towards the river. He says, that's where it goes. So I've been a bug on that issue for a lot of years now. I got training very early.
What would your time frame be?
I mean, honestly, as soon as we could. I mean, we would, if we go through, get everything. I mean, Kevin and them still got to do the entire, building permits. All the drawings, all that, and that's, I don't know, Kevin, probably a couple, at least a month, 2 months.
For all the building stuff, probably like three months.
Yeah.
I mean, the site, it could get done sooner, but yeah.
But I mean, realistically, if everything goes away, I mean, we'd like to be able to, you know, demo you can do whenever. We've got the geotech done, we've got the environmental done, we've got all that already done for that building. So there's no reason why we couldn't start, if everything goes right, there's no reason we couldn't start working on it, you know, March or April. Which is perfect for my timelines. I'll be building 2 more stores in March and April, so the third one is perfect. So. And then,
There's a traffic study that's, traffic impact study that's in process as well.
Okay.
so I mean, realistically, I mean, we look right now. I mean, this might be a little different, but I mean, the store I'm building in Olean right now, you know, Washington Street. Generally, from the time we get people on the project, minimum 90 days, maximum 110 days. So if there's no reason why it couldn't be open August or September of next year if everything, you know, were to go the way we needed it to. So
You know, if we have another open winter, you can maybe get an early start.
we could at least take the building down. I mean, we're about to take the building down right now on Hornell, so, you know.
And the current one will still be operational until this one opens?
So the plan would be literally if let's say the opening date was September 10th, September 9th, I'd be open across the street. We're not even taking any equipment out there. We're gonna put a whole new equipment package. Everything's gonna be brand new at night. And then at 5 o'clock in the morning, the next day, we would open up here. So,
Did you ever consider using the old building? The Friends, the.
that wouldn't be possible, really, just because of the drive-through and frankly, that building's just massive.
Yeah.
Just not, you know, the biggest footprint in a Tim Hortons is Lakewood, and that's 4,100 square feet, and that thing's massive. So,
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Do you have any questions or?
no,
No?
just figure out what you guys need from us after this. That's about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
See you guys.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to Dave Warren.
See you guys.
All right, thanks, Doug.
Have a good day.
So I don't know who wants these or, we have other copies, right? Yeah. So, basically would like to thank everybody, first of all, for putting me on the agenda today. So I've been working on this for about a year now. Just really honestly haven't had the opportunity finding the right contractor that I felt comfortable doing it until I met the Desmonds. But so basically what we're looking to do is add on an 80 by 120 building to our existing dealership for a new service department. My plan with that is we would go from what we have currently now with 7 bays to 15 bays, with the hopes of the partnership that I've put together with BOCES, where we're going to use that spot not only for our new service department, but the program that we have with the kids, try and get them, you know, into these trades.
Yeah, tell me more about that. I didn't know that you have kids from BOCES working there.
So it's not. So let me back up. So we had 2 kids over the summer.
Okay.
But what Paul and my plan is going forward, now that I own the power sports store out in Westfield, is we're putting a program together that if these students are good enough, that we are going to pay them as internships as seniors, with the hopes of not letting these kids go to college or another trade school. If we can develop them and train them and keep them here, then hopefully they become citizens in the city. For me, selfishly, they're a new technician that I need going forward. But obviously we need the room, and Paul needs the help because he needs, you know, situations. I mean, like he says, there's only so many times you can pull a ball joint apart and put it back together. You know, this way, plus the other thing it helps me is with my older technicians, get some youth in there so it's not so much wear and tear on their body. You know, so I'm keeping the longevity there, but also, you know, there's no better experience or training than rural world training. So getting back to this, the reason why I'm here today is because obviously we'd like to get going with this project sooner than later. And so I'm asking for a favor if we could try to speed this up, because obviously we would like to get, you know, the concrete and all that stuff poured before, because we're up against weather. Obviously, if this was springtime or whatever, it would be no issue, but, you know, we'd like to get this building up and enclosed, you know, before we deal with Mother Nature, and then obviously we can do all the stuff inside. So, part of the reason why we're here, and then obviously if you guys have any questions when it comes to the actual facility, you know, we've done all the engineering, we've done everything, we've got everything ready to go. You know, this has been a project that we've been talking, like I said, for about a year. But my plan with it is, in our industry, it's getting harder and harder to find technicians. So it's kind of a double benefit, I think. It's, you know, right now we have 4 technicians. When we open this up to 15 bays, it's gonna give me the opportunity to hire that many more people. You know, and the service technician's job is not a minimum wage job. I mean, it's, you know, people that are making $60,000 to $80,000 to $100,000 a year, depending on how good they are at their craft. So that's kind of what my whole plan is with this. And then obviously it's, you know, we're in a very old building down there, and trying to, you know, bring some newer technology and obviously a newer facility in some of the building that we have there now, which is a whole nother conversation for another day, but needs to come down just because of poor workmanship prior to when that building was built back in the day. So that's kind of my quick intro of why I'm here today. And I guess if there's any questions.
I love the idea of working with BOSIs. Having students work. I teach high school seniors and know a lot of those kids who, you know,
So Paul just
love, you know, work auto body mechanics and can.
So Paul and our plan is right
Well,
now, we have, I shouldn't say we, because it's not my it's his, but, so he's got 41 kids this year signed up for the program. So that is in between technical school, agriculture, which is, you know, big diesel, farm equipment, things like that. And then obviously the part that made it attractive for me, for him, was the fact that we have the power sports location now, because there's kids that want to get involved, whether it's ATVs, you know, side-by-sides, things like that. So what we're hoping is, and actually him and I were working on a grant to get transportation, because that's the hardest thing that he faces, is getting these kids from, you know, our local high schools out to their program, and then from there, the internship to get them into the school. So, but
So this is currently a vacant lot that you own right there?
yes, it's just right. We were using it as service parking. So my big time project that we're going to do is, once we get the new service building up, part of the existing building that we have now would come down, because there's a bad wall there that needs to come down. And then once I take that down, then that would replace the service park. So we're just kind of moving pieces, if that makes sense. So yeah, so right now it's just a gravel lot that we've, at this point in time, for the last 4 or 5 years, just used for service parking. So, and then this is gonna, you know, attach to our existing building, where then we're gonna move some stuff inside as far as where we have certain departments at. So the parts department would then be located in the current service department, so that way we can look at maybe adding another person there. So just trying to plan long term, plus we're gonna need more spaces. You know, the push continues to go to EV. You know, you're gonna have to start stocking batteries, and obviously those aren't small batteries, so you're gonna need more space to stock those as we go forward. So I'm just trying to plan forward as we go. Part of the other plan too is we'll be putting in, as of right now, 3 EV charging stations that, you know, will be pre-wired to go. I haven't actually pulled the trigger on the actual charger yet, because like everything, those keep changing daily. So obviously by the time we put those in, I want to get the latest and greatest, you know, as far as those go. So again, the main reason why we're here today is hoping that we can maybe, you know, ask a favor and try to speed up a little bit with the permits, so we could at least get the forms poured and the footers poured, so that way we're not trying to pour concrete in December or January, which obviously is not going to be the best situation for this building long term.
What is left that the city still requires?
Yes, so we still need to go through the drawings at staff level. Mark is away at a conference through tomorrow, so he's not back until Thursday anyway. So we still have staff level to conduct, and
Would there be environmental impact study or?
that's part of their
That's part of the
application
whole-
is for the state seeker to be submitted with that plan. And in terms of, you and I talked a little bit about this, in terms of trying to expedite something, we don't have a quorum today anyway. But in terms of finding an alternative for a voting session of some kind, perhaps before the November meeting.
And
And this-
what's the time frame for the seeker?
Oh, they can submit that anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, so that just becomes part, that becomes part of the package, the voting package.
Could we vote by, in a Zoom meeting?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's one option.
That's, might help you out.
And again, this, obviously was a favor, we had some emails back and forth, but, it's been a struggle for me down there just because for the past 2 years, I'm sure everybody in this room knows how bad Washington Street was. And then there was a point in time this year where, the city come in and replaced 10th and 11th and Lafayette behind me. So at one point for 2.5 months this year, I had construction all the way around me, which made business very, very difficult. So that's kind of, she granted me the favor to get in here today is because, obviously it's been difficult. I mean, there's been a lot of people that have, whether it's golf league or, out to dinner with my wife that, oh, how's things down in Washington Street? We're avoiding that altogether because of, so it's definitely hurt our business. So now that that's fixed, we've got beautiful curbing, we've got beautiful roads all the way around us. To add this beautiful building, I think just helps beautify that area, which obviously has not always looked the best on Washington Street. But obviously, the city's made an investment in the old Hartley building. Obviously, Blake has put a new. So I mean, that stretch of area I feel like is coming back again. JMI's obviously seems like they're buying up everything down there. So, I think that whole area is going to come back to what it once was. Prior to that. So just trying to help with that, and then obviously I don't mean to keep hammering it home, but that's the big thing for me because we talk about it in our meetings day in and day out. The hardest thing I think most businesses face today is finding people. So Paul and I's commitment there is to try to keep kids here, make them taxpayers, and the way you're going to do that is offering them careers that they feel they can make a good living, they can stay home, and then be part of the community.
It's a great idea.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, that's the population decline of the county, it's a real issue, and if we can keep kids here, but they gotta have an opportunity, they gotta have a job.
And right now I can't offer that to them because we don't
Yeah.
have the space to do it.
Right.
And, so like I said, selfishly for me, I've got some technicians that are getting up there in age.
Yeah.
And, we run ads every day trying to find people. And, I mean, just to give you an idea, we had a diesel tech that just got hired away from us, from the state. They offered him $45 an hour, full pension, full benefits. I can't compete with that, So, and Paul's idea is if we can compensate these kids as seniors some way, somehow, now they got more buying it because they're not just doing it for free and for their education, they're getting something out of it. And then our plan is, and he has very strong requirements, like you have to interview properly, you've got to make sure you're doing your end. He wants monthly reviews done on the kids, because if you don't fit the criteria, you're losing that internship.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that this is going to be looked upon as, a sought after position with these kids, and obviously it's beneficial to me as the dealership owner, but Paul and I are trying to put this program for the whole area. So I'm not trying to hog all these kids, because I can only house so many. So it's obviously a program that we're trying to do for Schultz and McFadden and and everybody else in the area. So
Okay.
It's much bigger than it used to be, but when I was a kid, a couple of years ago,
sorry, I feel like I've been.
a lot of the people that had service stations, pump gas and things like that, hired younger kids, and I could remember working in a couple of them, and boy, the guys that really knew their way around the vehicles loved to show the kids they were training everything, to lead you into it. Back in those days, I learned how to also to use the equipment to tear cars apart,
Right.
cut them up, as well as rebuild them.
You know,
It was, say, a couple of years back.
you know, my wife and I have this conversation all the time because she's a high school guidance counselor. You know, I think part of the problem we run into, and Tim and I have had this conversation with, when it comes to trade, you know, I think it was built in our kids' heads and even their parents for the most part, that, you know, trade thing was not a high profile career. You know, you had to go to college, you had to get the 4-year degree, but how many kids do that today and, you know, paying back hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans and don't have their field? So, you know, so we had an open house where we brought all the parents in for these 41 kids, and he had me there, so that way they could hear it from a local employer that this is how much of a demand that these fields are. And, you know, I don't care what field it is, I don't care if it's construction, plumbing, you know, whatever it may be. You can go anywhere in this world and get a job. That's how high demand it is, you know.
Right.
So,
Yeah, the problem today is that the guys are getting old and they're retiring or dying.
Right.
And there's nobody to take their place. I mean, if you can find somebody under 40 that knows something in the construction or whatever, it's rare.
You know, and when I first took over the store in 2014, we had 9 technicians. As we sit today, I have 4. You know, and that's a lot to do with what Tim just said. Guys have retired, guys have gotten a job, you know, because it is a physical job. There's no question about it. Throwing tires around and, you know, trying to get your hand into an area that they give you this much room to work on today, you know, so.
Technically, it's become a much bigger and more demanding job too. What goes out in cars nowadays, engines and everything, is quite a difference from
You know,
a
and
few years
that's,
ago or 4 years ago.
and that's what we're looking for with this whole another EV with the EV push. Like, that's a whole nother technology that even our technicians don't understand. Like, you know, you're working on one of these and you hook up the wrong thing the wrong way, it's blowing you through the shop. You know what I mean? I mean, you're dealing with a lot of power there. So, I mean, there's a whole other aspect that's coming with this that, but to your point, I mean, so much of it's done with software updates. So, like, if you look in the plans there, you know, back in the day, we would have had a lift in every one of those spots, but now we do a lift in what we call a flat rack, because there's a lot of times when we're working on a car, it just needs to be on a stationary piece of concrete, because we're doing software or whatever it may be where the car doesn't necessarily need to be up in there. So now this will give technicians 2 bays so they can, while we're maybe waiting on parts or whatever it may be, they can jump on the next car, and obviously that helps speed up proficiency and gets the customer their car back sooner.
Hopefully this works out well for you and you lead the charge on these kinds of things occurring in many places all around the country.
I appreciate that.
Well, and from our standpoint, in the construction, you know, the boys don't like mosquitoes in the summer. But we don't wanna be out there in 3 feet of snow trying to put these concrete foundations in.
Yeah.
Really, we just wanna get it done and underway.
Nobody's ever liked working around a lot of mosquitoes. I remember that training from a long time ago.
So I guess I want everybody to know, I understand there's a process and I understand there's rules and everything that needs to be done. But I guess I just wanted you to hear from my side why we're I'm not trying to break rules, I'm not trying to get a special favor, it's just, obviously we're up against the time limit and, you know, we'd like to get it done and going sooner than later. Like I said, if it was middle of summer, you know, then we could have waited till November and waited for the meeting then, but,
What you're really doing is taking another step forward, and that's good.
yeah.
And I think once all the boxes are checked, it's a lot easier to get together and
Yeah,
move
we
everything
can
along.
schedule a
Yeah.
meeting, or we can vote over it Zoom.
Right, yeah.
That's-
I mean, the sooner the boxes are checked, the
Okay.
sooner we can vote.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll
Yep.
get back with
Yeah.
those guys and get everything done and get that to you, you know, later than tomorrow maybe.
Yeah.
Ellen, do you see any zoning issues with this?
No.
Good. One less.
It's a good project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, you know, it's something that I wanted to do for a couple of years now, but like I said, had a project in Westfield and, you know, until I met Tim and Kane and, you know, now I feel comfortable that I've got, you know, that was part of, I mean, construction business was so busy over during COVID, like, you know, I would talk to guys, they're like, yeah, you know, I'll get to you next year or have it, well, you know. And then with the that was part of the other thing, was we had to put a halt to it because with the cost of materials going up there, I mean, you know, what was a $1.2 million project at one point was 1.8 just because of cost of materials. So, and at that point, you still got to make that pencil and you know, make that work. So,
prices keep rising.
Fortunately.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any other business to come before the commission?
I had one question. Did we ever replace Greg Graham on this one?
It's my cell phone.
You know,
I think
Jim?
we're still down one.
We're down one.
Yeah, we're,
So John Lemoncuso, replaced, Greg as the chair.
As a chair.
yeah.
Yeah, and Mike is serving as interim while John, manages his family situation.
Okay.
But other than that, we're still down one. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked to Greg.
I did, and he said no.
I thought Grant also was a good fit.
And I asked him.
Do we know when that term ends? Does it end at the end of this year, or can you check that out?
Yeah, I've been, the mayor and I actually had a conversation about maybe reaching out because the zoning board also has a vacancy. And for some reason it's just really tough to fill. And so I talked about the possibility of, you know, one of our zoning members also sat on the planning commission because the two are so linked that, you know, a lot of times you need one to get the other. In the charter, it doesn't say that you can't, but we're looking into that just because we've got some, you know, on both commissions, we've got good people that, you know, that know a lot and are willing to participate.
That would be nice to
So
have
if we could
perspective.
yeah, so,
Just the more numbers we have, the easier it'll be.
yeah,
Quants.
yes, yes.
Sounds good.
And I believe that there is an option to, if council wanted to appoint, like an alternate member that would just serve in the event that a quorum, you know, just to have somebody else as kind of backup to call in if a quorum could be reached, so. We're working on it. I think I've been like a really.
Thank you, everybody.
So far.
Jerry Swanson's next
There's
to,
no other business?
remember me, having Tom knows.
Yes, meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
That's when you bought the place from, right? Back in the 2014?
Just let me know,
Jerry.
when
Oh,
they
yeah,
get
July
all of
drawings.
their stuff